Today, we are privileged to have Dr. Tiffany S. Maxwell join us for a conversation today on clinical rotations and PA education in general. Dr. Tiffany S. Maxwell holds a doctorate of health science degree, master's of science in health services administration, and degree in physician assistant studies. She is also a board certified physician assistant with over 18 years of clinical experience and specializes in military and family medicine. Dr. Maxwell is the current and founding department chair and program director of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore Physician Assistant Program. While serving in this role, she is a proven subject matter expert in academic accreditation and program development, as she has built the program from the ground up, earned program accreditation, and graduated PAs that are successfully serving the local Maryland healthcare community. Dr. Maxwell is committed to educational excellence, as she is the 2023 recipient of the Maryland Academy of Physician Assistant Educator of the Year Award. Dr. Maxwell also serves on universities' accreditation and public safety and health committees. She also continues to provide insight and build strategic relationships within the healthcare community to enhance opportunities for students. Dr. Maxwell continues to serve as a mission-focused leader who can create strong team dynamics to deliver effective guidance to help continue positive organizational and educational advancement. And I'll just add to that, just a phenomenal person, my go-to, and I'm just so grateful to have you join us today for a short conversation. And thank you so much for fitting a few minutes of time in your schedule for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the invite of PAEA, and thank you, Emma.
Absolutely. So, we'll kind of dig right in a little bit. So we have, our DI-MAC committee hosts town halls every year. And so we've gotten some good feedback and some thought, particularly from our students, on some of their experiences in the classroom. And one thing that really came up is their clinical education experience. And so I want to just think through that. And that's kind of the umbrella that we'll be talking through or talking under a little bit today. But I just want to talk through some of your thoughts as a educator, as a physician assistant on the clinical education experience. So in a very broad sense, can you talk through just some issues that you see in the PA clinical education space?
Well, some of the concerns I see it's a more global concern. So the global concerns that we are all facing as programs are a number of sites. So that tends to be an issue. Also, faculty and preceptors. So that's global concerns. And particularly if I want to narrow down to my program or its state. So I practice and my program's in the state of Maryland, which has very restrictive PA laws. And because they have very restrictive PA laws, as a program director, it's really hard for me to relay the benefit of having a PA students where the environment is nurse practitioner friendly. So for having PA students, sometimes physicians and organizations give us a second look as it's more beneficial for them to hire a nurse practitioner just due to the laws in Maryland. So that kind of puts us at a disadvantage. Also in Maryland, the number of programs that are popping up. So it's very hard for us to keep sites and then to think about we're at HBCU and a state institution. So in a minute, just thinking about the foresight of us being able to compete with these other schools without raising our tuition and then making the education unequitable. Or so that's where my mind is starting to shift with regards to, PA education in a clinical setting and things that we should be aware of, and especially in the HBCU community where my focus is going.
Yeah, no, good. I mean, all of that was very rich, but two things really stick out is one, the HBCU community and what that means, which is very unique, and some of those things you experience and will have to navigate. And then and I'm glad you highlight those global issues of just, again, the number of sites, faculty, preceptors, things like that, that are really causing some barriers, that PA programs are having to navigate. So when you think, keeping that in mind, some of those barriers, some of those more specific or local challenges, state challenges, program specific challenges, how are we preparing students for today's work environment through the clinical experience?
I think as a profession and as a community, we are doing well with educating our students to be competent professionals. So I think we have that on lock. I think we can say PAs when employees hire a PA, they know what they're getting. They're getting competent healthcare professionals. So I think we're doing that well. Where I think we're struggling with are the soft skills, and that's the humanity, the professionalism, the bedside manner, the communication, like integrating our students from the school setting into the health professional setting. It's almost as a program director, when I created the curriculum, and as a department chair, when I'm thinking globally or as a school, I really didn't think about, I have to really teach professionalism. I have to teach you to not talk on your phone while you're seeing a patient. I have to teach you that if you're not going to show up, you don't IM someone, you actually pick up the phone and call and try to have a plan, because if you're missing, someone's missing healthcare. So just those parameters, I'm realizing I have to reteach. And then also at the same time that I had to reteach it, what I'm finding is, for students of color, there is no grace in those areas. So just like at a HBCU, I have students of color and I have students who are not of color. And when it comes to that piece, because all students are struggling with that. So it's students of color, students not of color, all students of this generation seem to be struggling with that transition from the classroom to the clinical setting. But I notice when those preceptor evaluations come back, there's no grace given. So that puts me in a precarious and tough situation, because now I have changed my approach. I'm very tough on professionalism. I don't give any room, because they don't understand the magnitude of that miss. You're not going to get any grace. And that's going to either be a delay in graduation or a repeat or a dismissal, and they don't understand that. So I have to take the brunt as being very strict, very detailed. And sometimes, students don't understand that until they get to the clinical year, until these evaluations come back. And sometimes they compare it to their peers. And I tell them, you can't do that. You have to make sure. So that's unique. What I'm finding in that space is what we're still, but the education, the quality, not an issue. It's really what I'm seeing is the issue of that professional translation and how that presents to healthcare sites, and especially for students of color, how that translates over.
No, there's always that double-edged sword that that folks have to that we have to navigate. And what you just said kind of leads to a new thought. So, or next thought, the bias and discrimination that students will face during clinical rotations, whether it's the professionalism standards, whether it's from the the patients that they're working with. How should students handle that? And you kind of started talking to that. How can they start to process how to respond and stay motivated in these spaces?
Well, Emma, you know me, I'm transparent to a fault. So that doesn't always, but I tell them, address it where it happens. And remember, although we describe them as students, they're adults. They're college graduates, their wives, their husbands, their spouses, their mothers, their fathers. So now the how is always what I'm worried about. But as far as the incident, I tell them, address it where it stands. Just for instance, we had a student who felt she was dismissed as far as seeing patients. And for some reason, she did not get a chance to rotate as much. And I asked her, I said, did you ask when it's dismissal time? Hey, my section is still going. Is there a reason why I'm being dismissed? Because maybe it is. Maybe there's maybe they don't have the time, resources. Remember, we're not paying these people. We're asking them to do it at the kindness of their heart. Or maybe they don't understand that, I am reflecting that bias. And is an opportunity to have a conversation. And then, of course, the program will back you. But I need you to remember, you're an adult, you're in a space. In 12 months, you're going to be a C behind your name, and you're going to have to advocate for yourself. So at that point, my belief in as a program director and as a person is to address it, be transparent about it, because if you don't call it, it's not going to be fixed. You know, the generation hiding behind a text or email or sending the exposure. No, address it where it happens. And that's an opportunity where you will probably be most receptive for people to learn on both sides and try to mitigate the problem. So that way you're able to get what you need. They understand where you are and what's going on. So that's my approach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what a rich experience to again learn to not to advocate for yourself. You can put in some of the professionalism. You're going to deal with this once you get the C behind your name, like you said. So to go ahead and start now where you are going to have the university's backing, to kind of to navigate this space, which for some people may be the first time they've encountered, some of this in a professional setting. So no, really, really appreciate that. And then following up with that, you mentioned, the university, we're going to support you. How can programs respond when students experience this bias, racism, discrimination in their rotations? We heard very loud and clear from students that it does happen. And so how can we equip faculty and staff to support these students through this space?
Again, like I've had to do it, address it and be very transparent. And what I've learned for me, that is speaking a common language that they understand. And sometimes we have to remember they don't have the same experiences we have. So when incidents happen, they don't have all of the charge and all of the hurt and all of the emotion and a lot of the things in backing. So addressing it. So it's pretty much, addressing it head on. For instance, I had a member of a team that constantly described African-American females that present as aggressive. And she could not understand why that was a trigger for one of the students who just went off. And again, common language. So how did I address that? I started by describing the incident and then actually reading the definition of aggressive at the Webster Dictionary. So likely or imminent attack. So do you truly believe that this student was going to imminently and likely attack you at this point? It's this moment while they're presenting. Did you really feel the threat on your life? Is that what you experienced that you're communicating to me as a program director for me to address? You're asking me to address an imminent attack on your life. And then once you bring it out, it sounds silly. So just really addressing the situation. And although, of course, that wasn't received as well either, but I'm not here to, that wasn't my mission to make you feel okay. My mission was to make sure you understood the language you were using. Now, I watched the video and I used adjectives. I thought it was disorganized and distracting, but I didn't feel like there was an imminent attack on my life. And that was an opportunity of learning for the student and opportunity for learning for the person who was assessing the student. So really just calling it out, using common language where they can understand, here's the concern. And this is something that you're going to have to look at. Yes, we want the student to look at her issues, but if you're going to be in a master role, the role of mastery of education, then I'm going to need you to also self-reflect and look like you project. So really just calling it out, giving opportunity for education and opportunity to redo, being able to come back from your mistakes as well. So, or errors or unbiased or whatever it is, biased intentionally or non-intentionally, it still happened. So just trying to make space for growth on both ends. And that's what I find myself doing. Not that I'm always well received from doing it, but if not me, then who, right?
Right. Right. No, and I think what you just said at the end, in working with faculty kind of on this conversation, there is a concern about, how it's going to be received to the preceptor, and goes back to those global issues. Well, if we don't do this, and they won't be a preceptor anymore, and things of that nature. So we can't minimize the global issues, but we also have to keep in mind we have to develop competent PAs and have them in environments where they can learn and grow. If you had a final thought or feeling or summary to the these clinical rotations and some of the negative experiences that our students face, and you could guide faculty through this, any last thoughts or words that you would want to share?
I would tell students and faculty, don't be afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. Uncomfortable conversations is where progress happens. And that's where we see the most growth on both sides, because we're going to deal with things that are out of our control, just like the global issues. But issues that prevent or hinder the experience of the student and of the faculty and of the preceptor, it's important to address so that we can do better as a healthcare community, because the truth is these are going to be your colleagues, and for the truth is students, you're going to experience these things. So how do we move collectively to a better place? And I think it's okay to be uncomfortable and still be progressive.
Absolutely. Dr. Maxwell, is always a pleasure and a privilege to share space with you. So thank you so much for, again, our conversation today. And I hope our faculty and staff and any students who might listen got all the nuggets from what it is that you shared, and can start implementing some of these things into their program. So again, thank you. Thank you so much. And just glad to see you and share this time with you.
Thank you.